Hello, that was Intermezzo from Cavalleria Rusticana by Pietro Mascagni, as arranged by Alan Bullard. This is the B2 piece of the ABRSM Piano Grade 5 Flute exam pieces from 2022. Taking a look at the start of the piece, we are in 3/4 time, with one flat in the key signature suggesting that we are based in F major. We do have some B naturals, especially in bar 12 to 19, but it seems like that passage in particular is in the minor key, which resolves itself by the time the phrase ends. The F major scale is part of the grade 6 syllabus to 2 octaves, but it is still useful to learn it as it has the entire range of the piece. Plus there are a few scale snippets in this piece as well. The instruction of play here is andante sostenuto, andante meaning a moderate tempo as dictated by the speed given at crotchets equals 60 beats per minute. Sostenuto means that we need to play the piece in a sustained or prolonged manner, essentially saying that the notes need to be played at its fullest value and not to cut any corners. We also get poco più mosso, a little faster in bar 20, at crotchets equals 66. The difference is quite subtle, so don't exaggerate the speed change here. This piece is pretty much free composed, no passages or themes which repeats itself. Firstly, we have bar 1 to 11, with a pentuplet flourish and a poco with tenuendo towards the end. Secondly, from bar 12 to 19, we have a little section where we finish off the piano's melody and the poco row towards the end. After that, a section where we get a lot of repeating tonics. We first start off with a scale going up and then a downward melody that is repeated a couple of times. Now we're going to hear this melody a couple of times, and on the third time we're playing this melody an octave lower. And finally, the ending phrase, where we keep climbing in notes, but we decrescendo in volume from bar 43. We start the piece in pianissimo espressive, so playing very quietly but expressively. Now this can be helped by the suggested dynamic hairpins and dynamic in bar 4. although actually we end the phrase on the G note and the accented A minor note starts a different phrase. The second phrase is where it starts to be a bit complicated with the rhythm, but it is still easily countable by quavers or crotchets. We start off with a minimum A tied to a quaver, which is a total of 5 quavers or 2.5 crotchets. Then at the end of bar 5 and 6, we get dotted quaver rhythm and semi-quaver rhythm, which if we are counting in quavers, we just play the semi-quaver after the count for the AM beat. If you're counting in crotchet, you're kind of doing a swing rhythm a little bit, but you're trying to fit them into a crotchet. So counting in quavers, and in crotchets, then bar 7 we have a quintuplet. A quintuplet takes up the space of the first 4 notes, so 5 quintuplet semiquavers have to fit in the time of 4 semiquavers, so a crotchet. It is actually quite hard to count quintuplets in quavers because of the timing and uneven split. What's likely going to happen is that you split the 5 into 2s and 3s and it won't be even. The easiest way to count this is in crotchets. You just have to make sure that you start the quintuplet B flat on the beat, and then the dotted crotchet A note also starts on the beat in the next bar in time. So really you have 2 options for counting in this piece. You can either count the whole piece in quavers but switch to crotchets in bar 7, or if that's not possible, then you have to count the whole piece in crotchets. To be honest, the choice really is yours because the only difficult rhythm in here is bar 5 to 7. And the rest of the piece, counting either way doesn't really matter that much. Personally, I feel it is easier to count for the dotted quaver crotchet in crotchets than it is to match a quintuplet to quavers. After the quintuplet, we have more variation in rhythm. We have a dotted crotchet in bar 8, as well as a pair of quavers slurred between bar 8 and 9. In bar 10, we have 4 semiquavers, and in bar 11, another minimum tied to a quaver. Rhythmically, this is the most complex it's going to get in this piece. This piece is a lot more about the tone and the color, the dynamics, the phrasing, or ignore the emotional delivery. Speaking of which, we have a crescendo from PP on bar 7 onto an MP, then decrescendoing into another pianissimo, as well as a poco with tenuo, suddenly getting a little slower. In this piece, pianissimo doesn't necessarily mean getting super quiet. While the volume still applies, it more refers to the tone and the color, being colder and thinner rather than a warm, rich sound. How you deliver that musically feeling is up to you, but physically, I am letting a thinner breath of air of a lower speed to get both quieter in volume and thinner in tone. Also, I'm doing less vibrato because it is associated more with a warmer, rich sound. So from bar 7, getting back to the original tempo in bar 12, we're being asked to play in piano and dulce, so sweetly and softly. The melody we have here are 3 repeating sets of a bar rest, then a syncopated rhythm with a quaver rest, a crotchet, and then 3 quavers. The melody we have here are 3 repeating sets of a bar rest, then a syncopated rhythm with a quaver rest, a crotchet, and then 3 quavers. So the rhythm for the syncopated rhythm is this. Notes-wise, the first two syncopation rhythm is the same. The third time we get joined into a longer phrase, so the notes are different. The piano is going to be playing on the beat during our rest bars, and then will join us on the longer last phrase. Again, similar to the previous section, we are getting a crescendo in bar 17 up to an MP in bar 18, and then immediately decrescendoing into a piano in bar 19, accompanied by a polka row, getting slower a little bit. So playing with the piano. A thing to remind you is that for the third to syncopation melody, don't hang on to the last note because it is only a quaver length. If you want to start the phrases softly and sweetly, instead of tonguing the first note, try just blowing air through without the tonguing. This is going to create a more gently easing in the phrase. So if I tongue the phrase, compared to if I just blow into the phrase, now this is a subtle difference that can improve the delivery of your music. The third section from bar 20 to 31, the rhythm is getting even simpler, so the emphasis is even more heavily on the dynamics and the expression. The speed is ever so slightly faster at crotches equals 66 now. While the dynamic instructions dictate the tone of the phrase, we can also fill in a little bit of the phrase dynamics where there are gaps. For example, in bar 23 and 24, 28 and 29, we are going from an MF phrase to an MP phrase, so at the end of the MF phrase, we can do a little decrescendo down. You could find a crescendo on bar 27 slightly tricky, as we are doing a crescendo on one note. But you just need to keep widening the embouchure and deepen the sound. You can also start the crescendo a little bit earlier as well if you want to. Look out for the two 2-bar phrases in bar 28 to 31. The tonguing is slightly different as the first note isn't tongued to the rest of the phrase. Now it is also important in this section to get the phrasing and the breathing right because you don't really want to break up the phrase where you're doing a dynamic change. On to a new section. The first phrase starts off different to the rest. It is a scale in style. We start off with a crotchet, to quavers, to semi-quavers, landing on a dotted crotchet to end. Now this creates a speeding up effect, but don't actually speed up your tempo. We're also crescendoing on this as well, from a piano where we were the phrase before to a forte on our dotted crotchet. After that, we start a new slur, coming down 3 quavers and then 3 crotchets, and then finally landing on a dotted crotchet to end. Now we're also doing a decrescendo on this as well onto a piano. And this following melody is going to be played 3 times in this section. The last time is going to be an octave lower. So bar 32 to 33. Starting off with piano from previously, we are now going to play 3 quaver high F upbeats. Now, in piano it is quite hard to do that, but luckily we do have a crescendo, meaning that we only need to do the first high note quiet, and then the second and third one can be louder until we get to a dotted crotchet forte on bar 37. A repeat of the notes and rhythm here, we have a tenuo on top of the notes though, meaning that we need to make sure that they are played for the entire length of what is written and not shortened. because as a way of doing dynamics, you can also shorten the notes as well. And after that, we're going to get a repeat of the following melody. So upbeat of bar 36 to 38. The next phrase, we have exactly the same melody as previously with the same dynamic articulation, but we're now an octave lower and the speed is now slightly slower back to our original tempo from tempo primo, the first tempo. Now look out for the Fs here. Because we are on the lower register, if you blow too hard or too fast, you could end up playing the harmonic, which is not the note that you want to. The sound could also be unclear as well. So now playing properly for the last phrase in this section. And finally, the ending phrase from bar 44. We see a dim al fine, diminuendo al fine, meaning getting quieter until the end, as we see with a pianissimo on the last bar. Now there is also a ritz there, but realistically that just means the last note could be held on for longer while the piano ritz with its 3 repeating chords. Now you still have control of when to stop playing the note. A common way to do this is to subtly lift your flute up as you're playing the note, and then when you're done, gently drop it a little bit. Or you can do a little circular motion lifting up at the end. Whichever way you do it, you need to make sure that it is communicated with the pianist beforehand, and then the pianist can see your action, and then you both end the piece together. The notes are fairly simple, and we're not going as high as before whilst trying to play quietly. The only thing that might catch you out is the dotted crotchet in bar 45 isn't slurred to the 3-quaver upbeats from before. So from bar 43 until the end. And that's the end of the piece. Well, that was the tutorial of the B2 piece Intermezzo by Pietro Mascagni. This is a slow, soothing piece. The rhythm is fairly simple, so the main emphasis is the expression, the tone, the color, and the dynamic range. It is important not to rush the quavers and semi-quavers as we want to keep a fairly constant speed in our sections. The quiet high notes could prove a challenge, but tighten up your embouchure, restrict your airflow to try and get a consistent quiet high note. Hopefully that was useful to you. This is the second of the grade 5B pieces. Check out the other pieces in the playlist when they're up. Also check out my piano tutorials, my F1 gaming series, and other hobbies as well if you're interested. Give it a like and subscribe if you like what I did here. Put a comment down below if you want me to go over anything specific, or if you want to share your own tips and tricks with your fellow viewers. I'll see you in the next video on Master of None. Bye!